My mother's education was stopped when she was 8 years old because there was no capital. I realized that there was an incredible amount of potential that just remained locked for her entire life because there was no capital to unlock it. The banks who had approved a loan to us did not give us the loan. All my hotel money is going into this project for the past 13 years, and so far there has been no financial return. There was really grave concern for a very long time that is this project going to see the light of the day, or will we be selling our family jewels?
Are you looking at these properties as businesses, or are they really cultural vessels or like living legacies for you?
These are culture incubation sites. These are platforms as opposed to products. These are ecosystems as opposed to enterprises.
I can only imagine how proud your parents must feel when they walk through these properties that you've created.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Prime Talks, where we meet and interact and glean insights from the world's most insightful, innovative, transformative leaders, investors, and entrepreneurs. Today, we have a very special treat. Somebody who's joining us from the East as opposed to the West, and really hopefully changing the paradigm for how intergenerational wealth transfers occur and regenerative wealth practices are actually transmitted from one generation to the next. So to introduce our illustrious guest, I'll ask my partner in crime, Sylvia, to please introduce Manvendra.
Yes, hello everyone. Welcome to today's episode. And I'm genuinely excited to share a conversation with a man whose work beautifully blends hospitality, heritage, and human connection, Manvendra Singh Shekhawat. So Manvendra is a founder and visionary behind what you could call a hotel group. I went and visited it this winter, and most hotels don't make me cry from profound emotional connection. So I don't know if hotel group is the right word for what he's created. In reality, these are experiences that honor India's cultural roots while reimagining modern luxury through a soulful, sustainable lens. So from transforming forgotten forts into living pieces of history to leading social impact projects across Rajasthan, his mission extends far beyond travel, and it's about creating spaces that awaken consciousness, celebrate community, and restore our relationship with the land. So in this episode, we're going to explore the deep philosophies guiding his work, from leadership to legacy to purpose, transformation, and the art of building meaningful experiences in a world that's often chasing the superficial. So thank you, Manvendra, for joining us today. I've been really looking forward to this episode. So I'm going to just start with the first question, and we can see how it organically unfolds from there. You grew up with a family legacy already. So I'm curious about how your family legacy shaped your relationship to land, to heritage, and ultimately to the capital. So how does your family's legacy come into play in what you're creating today?
Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you, Mo, for inviting me on this podcast. I grew up in Rajasthan in a Rajput family, conventional Rajput family. Both my parents had very humble beginnings. My mother's education was stopped when she was 8 years old because there was no capital. And she was married at 17. She had me while she was 18. And I found that as I have seen her story, I realized that there was an incredible amount of potential that just remained locked for her entire life because there was no capital to unlock it. My father's mother died when he was very young, and he also grew up in a house with very, very humble beginnings. And I saw that over the course of his life, and after he got married, and my mother was around him, how deep courage and deep conviction could create capital. And it changed the course of not only my life, but also the people in the village, the people in his extended friend circle. And there was this incredible amount of value that I have seen, that how capital at the right moment, at the right time, can unlock human potential in a way that other things can't. I see my own journey and the difference between my journey and my cousin's journey with the same genetic pool, but completely different exposures and completely different education just because of capital. So I think that for me, capital has been, I've seen it so up close while we were growing up, that we did not have a phone, we did not have television. And I've seen that how, as things shaped up, how it unlocked what was possible out of life itself. And I see that for a country like India, and countries like India, in fact, with incredible amount of human dividend, capital, if deployed for creating more equality of opportunity, can unleash great good for the world. I also come from Rajasthan, wherein legacy and inheritance, these are not words or not trophies. It's deeply embedded in our culture, custom, cuisine, and it's something that we live. There are many philosophies that are embedded into social contracts and cultural design that inspires not only who we are and who we become, but pretty much every aspect of our life. There are also legacies which have lived their time and they don't serve the purpose that now, and that needs to evolve, and sometimes it can be a shackle to have a legacy. So my relationship with legacy and inheritance, depending on what time of my life I was, has been shaped, and in ways that I have admired it, I have respected it, but I have many a time also questioned it. And the thing that I follow on is that we can take the absolute best that our histories and our past have to offer, the collective past have to offer. And on that foundation, on first principles, if you build something that is relevant today and hopefully is going to last a few more generations, then these are good choices. But I don't tend to see legacy and inheritance as nostalgia, but I tend to see it as a resource on which you can build the futures that we desire and we need.
So maybe, Manvendra, then thank you. That's a really helpful context. Just to go a little bit deeper on it, I mean, and before we go into your mission and what's keeping you busy, you mentioned your parents came from humble beginnings, and by virtue of deploying their human capital intelligently and courage and a lot of the other traits that you referenced, they've kind of gotten to a better place. Could you fill in the gap for us, for people who not familiar with you, with your family, with the family business? What actually happened? What did they do? And then how did that set the stage for you now to do what you do?
So, my father really grew up in the 60s and 70s, and he became a trainee at a hotel in Jaipur. And from there on, he moved to Bahrain to work at the Greek embassy. Then from there, he went to Saudi and he worked multiple shifts, collected some capital, came back in India, started a small restaurant, then expanded to a small hotel, then got into real estate, then he got into mining, then he got into infrastructure. And so he's been a serial entrepreneur who basically kept on pushing what was possible in the context that he was in, with the circumstantial realities that he is. And God was kind. And I think that my mother had an incredible role to play in this journey. And that's how things changed. Initially, when I was a kid, at 4 years, I was in a hostel because my father and my mother, they were moving just too many places depending on wherever that entrepreneurial opportunity was. And so I was in a hostel for, let's say, from class when I was age 4 to about age 10. And after that, I moved back with my parents, and then gradually things started unlocking. And I was put in a great school, still not the kinds of private boarding school or something, but it was a good school. It was a good school that instilled values. And I saw my father take bigger risk, bolder steps as he built his cocoon. And my mother, uh, the fact that she was not educated formally, the kind of upbringing she gave us, I think that it it is. I mean, a lot of who whatever I give credit to, is my family, but it's largely for my mother's role in shaping our lives. So that really happened where they built this journey, and my mother kept the home together, and she brought us up, and that partnership worked, at least for my life, really well, where I was able to access education and exposure like many of my members in the extended family could not and have not. And I clearly see the difference that is made in what we are able to achieve.
What's so interesting about your story is I think that's unusual in India because usually India has very like generational wealth transfers that go for long spans of time, but you're essentially sharing an entrepreneurial story and you are technically G2 in your family in terms of wealth creation. I think that's relatively unusual.
Very much.
It's interesting. So would you say that?
Very much so. And
Go ahead.
so the background is also that at least my father's side, they came from a lot of wealth 4 generations back. And then they saw, like my father's grandfather saw a big decline wherein the state was taken. He was, around just before independence. There was the abolishment of all the zamindari system, and he was given land at a certain place, and just his grandfather saw the erosion of wealth, and then my grandfather started like just holding the base, and then my father built it for himself. So your first question was interesting about capital and how capital is so fluid, and it comes and it goes, and there are certain values if families have, that it stays, and when you don't have those values, it sublimes.
We see this a lot with families, and there's actually kind of a saying or an adage, almost cross culturally, that most wealth is created and lost in 3 generations. Like in Italian, they say, from the stable to the stars and back to the stable again. And what we've identified working with families is that what really preserves wealth or grows wealth is the transfer of values from one generation to another. And that I think is what you're speaking about, is that kind of generational thinking and transfer of values. And so, you know, even to clarify more, like what were some of the values that you feel like you learned from your parents that you are passing on now through the legacy that you're creating?
I think that the fact that capital is always a means and it is not an end on all spectrums is, I think, the singular value that I draw from there. Because in my family, whether it was my mother's side and my father's side, capital has always been deployed for creating institutions that live generationally. And the purpose of capital has rarely been hoarding all of it yourself, but it is to create opportunity wherein you increase the size of the pie substantially, and then you enjoy the success also of creating that pie. And but the wealth or capital or legacy is not constrained to solving only for your own needs, and that is the only way I have seen it grows. So it's a counterintuitive thing, which is that the more you hoard it, the lesser it becomes. Is at least my experience of it.
Yeah. And Manvendra, first of all, couldn't agree more. Um, thank you for sharing that history in terms of your family and your parents. You personally, I mean, you are at this level of thoughtfulness, consciousness, have a strong conviction behind the things that you do. What was your personal evolution or maturation process? Like, how did you get here? I imagine you didn't come out of the womb with exactly these ideas and values. But just walk us through a little bit about some of the steps in between.
It was interesting that when like I spent a lot of time by myself. I was in a hostel for a very long time. I was not with my parents from the age of 4 to age of 10. I was in a hostel, and then I was with my mother's brother for a very long time. And I met a teacher. He was a Bengali man who really, I think, shaped a lot of who my personality became, which was that I was forever curious and my interests were diverse and I was doing all sort of things all the time. And I think that that was an important facet for me to have developed, that even without resources you could try out a whole bunch of things which shaped my way of thinking. I was naturally interested in mathematics and physics, and that is what I graduated in. I did my Bachelor of Sciences. I was reasonably good student. So in my entire family, when I got a chance to be in the merit list of Rajasthan, it's a highly competitive examination. Everyone thought that this boy is going to do something uh, in the field of academics and wanted to do. But then when I took admission, I started studying for medicine. Ultimately, left that, graduated with physics and geology, and while I was doing that, hung out only with the arts people, learned flying, photography, pursued an interest in fashion for a very long time before coming to boutique hotels, and then taking social entrepreneurship, and then gradually trying to build a community for 8,500 people. So, what has shaped my journey is this curiosity and intuition to be pulled in directions that I find meaningful. And the family support has been to just say that, okay, do whatever you want to do with conviction, and we are there to help you, support you whenever you need it. So that's there. And I think that I still feel the kind of choices I made, while my family never really got it and they still don't get me, but they've always put their weight behind me, and that's been a blessing.
I can only imagine how proud your parents must feel when they walk through these properties that you've created. It must be quite a beautiful moment that you share as a family. I'm curious because, when I visited Suryagarh, the intensive capital that it takes to build something at that level, at that scale, with that eye to design and quality of materials, and like I would notice every fabric on every chair was so beautifully woven and chosen, and everything to me felt like it was made by hand, which I'm sure is very intentional on your part. I'm looking at that through the lens of a businesswoman, not just as a hotel guest. And I'm asking myself the question, like, are you looking at these properties as businesses, or are they really cultural vessels or like living legacies for you? Because I don't even know how you can create something at that level and turn a profit from it, because the investment must be extraordinary.
Yes, when you see a property like Suryagarh and you see the amount of handcraft work that has gone in, that is a natural assumption. You're absolutely right. But I feel that in countries like India, which are maybe economically poor but culturally exceptionally rich, there is this huge amount of latent value that exists in forgotten practices, underserved communities, undervalued cultural capital, civilizational infrastructure. And I feel that when you go out looking for it, you are able to pick things and do things in a way that it is not possible anywhere else in the world. And I say this because I've done this at Suryagarh. The level of craft that exists in that region of Jaisalmer, when we started working on it, a lot of these crafts did not have any patronage, because of which it was somewhat dying. And you can still go to Jaisalmer, and the communities of gypsy musicians that sing in off season may be singing just for a meal. And so the idea for me when we started Suryagarh was that if we really built a platform, you see, I'm not from the hotel background. I was 22 years of age when I started working on this hotel. It was a very different business model to which I pivoted and I made it a different business model. And the whole idea was that I was fascinated by Jaisalmer, its people, their ways of life, the unearthed stories of the region, the unexplored facets of that region. And I just thought that if we made a medium for people to experience what this region has to offer by making a platform of culture incubation, by taking the best ideas from this region to the world and get the most discerning people from the world to that region, it would make sense. So, to answer your question as a businesswoman, in fact, there was a HBS case that got written on Suryagarh, uh, and it was precisely on this premise that we could still achieve a very high perceived value product at a substantially low cost because of the civilization, infrastructure, cultural capital that already exists in the region. And this is not only Jaisalmer. Jaisalmer is one remote corner in the country. It exists everywhere, pretty much everywhere. And the opportunity of valuing it and paying people what they would never dream of getting for doing exactly the thing that you are seeing value in, and that becoming a source of income because of which they don't have to leave their regions and become slum dwellers in overcrowded metros. uh, it's like a complete win-win for everyone. So so to answer your
Yeah, that's very profound.
so to answer your question, at this moment, all the restoration sites that I am doing with that level of craft, we are able to do in 200 to $250,000 per key. And that is the cost in which we are able to do this work because the skill, the craft, the human capital already exists in the region.
Yeah.
And then you can
Wow.
uh,
Wow.
build capacity, put it together, and put it out, and that's where you walk away with a lot more value than you think it may have cost, because it does not really cost as much if you stay authentic and true to the place. uh it does not cost much. And then you spoke about the capital. I wanted to give you a sense of the the business premise also. Yes, these are culture incubation sites, these are platforms, as opposed to products. These are ecosystems as opposed to enterprises. All these units, whether it's the restoration of the Chunar Fort, which is a 2,000-year-old fortress, or it is Suryagarh, or it is Narendra Bhavan, really the endeavor is to take the best that that region has to offer, give it a platform, position it in a way that it truly deserves, and then get the most discerning people from the world to visit these regions and become a catalyst in sparking micro enterprises in that region, and then lift that leaves region not from a sense of giving back but from a symbiotic nature. It's at the minimum, this is what one can do for being part and benefiting from an ecosystem that already exists, and then extending because of that the soft power of that region and bringing pride and dignity to the people for making them aware that what they already have is nothing short of extraordinary.
Hmm.
And that is something that
Yeah.
I feel in a country like India and countries like India, there is so much unknown, undervalued, underappreciated cultural capital that just exist. I mean, think about yoga. It's a billions of dollars of industry, and it comes from this part of the world. It's net positive for everyone. And when you think of the chicken curry work, when you think of the way that you build architecture in the desert, when you think of herbs that grow up in the Himalayan region, when you think of the spices that grow in the kind of Ayurveda, that all of this is cultural capital upon which you can create developmental narratives so that we don't have to make, holes in the earth and, pollute the environment. And you can create entire civilizations and developmental narratives and economies, place-based economies. And that's really a very small segment of it is what I'm trying to do with the restoration sites, because I see this as such a massive opportunity that regeneration, environmental, social, cultural regeneration for the first time in human history can be as logical, as scalable, and as profitable as extraction once was. And I think that's the narrative that can come out from this part of the world. So the long answer to your short question, in the short summary of it, is that these are very, very financially profitable business models for those exact reasons.
Wow.
Well, I just want to say three quick things, Mo, and I'll let you take it. One is I would love to drop that HBS study into our show notes so that the families can read that, and that what you're talking about is like it's not philanthropic and it's not capitalistic, it's catalytic. And I think that's something that all families can learn from, was how do you unlock the inherent cultural value of your place, because everyone comes from somewhere. And so for the families to really look at the regions locally where they are from and how can you catalytically improve and showcase and highlight the culture in ways that create economic benefit for the entire community.
And I think
And for yourself, outside the economic benefit, you will see that in all the projects that I'm doing at this moment, all without exception, in none of the projects my capital cost for acquisition of land or the asset itself, which are competitively defensible for life, which are have historic importance, which have cultural significance, none of these assets, including Suryagarh, has been acquired for more than 4% of the project cost. Of the entire project cost, the cost
Wow.
of acquisition of real estate is not even 4%. In
Wow.
Suryagarh's case, it was not even 1%. The entire land on which Suryagarh sits right now was acquired at $10,000, that entire land. So if you see from a business point of view, where land itself can cost 50, 60% of the project value, if you bring that down and use that excess capital that you save into plowing it back into regional economies, build capacity, and then ride the value that you create, that is really the business premise.
It's fascinating. I mean, absolutely fascinating to hear you describe these projects. I think, central to what you've just articulated is this role that you play as both a curator of cultural capital, because you're sort of taking what's already there but extracting the best of it, and then as a translator of cultural capital to those who are discerning, like as you described. So Sylvia, I've known Sylvia, I know Sylvia extremely well. She has a great eye for quality. She has a great eye for design, for symmetry, for intentionality. So for that, something you had to have done something to be able to play that translational role and that curational role. What is it that you think helps you do that, so that then you could effectively facilitate the arbitrage between what somebody will pay for cultural capital in New York or London or Miami versus what it costs to create, and extract that, I don't even want to say extract, leverage this incredible talent that you are finding in these smaller markets. Like what helps you do that? What are some of what's the magic sauce in that exercise?
And before you answer, I'm going to add just a few observations from having been at the property. For example, I went to the morning yoga the first day I was there, and I was astonished that there was a real yoga master teaching. I've been doing Ashtanga yoga since I was 19 years old. It was an actual master of yoga teaching. And so when you get the opportunity, it's almost you're receiving like a darshan or a transmission from the yoga teacher, as opposed to it just being a class at the gym. Or when I would sit and eat in the restaurant, after the first meal, the waiters were so proud of the cuisine that I wouldn't even look at the menu. I would just say to them, please feed me. That's all I would say. And the pride with which they would bring these dishes and explain them to me was extraordinary. I mean, I'm still dreaming about some of the things that I ate there. You could only, they were so local and so fresh and so exquisitely made. And so that is not something you put into a training manual in a corporate guidebook. Like that's a different kind of process that is behind that offering that you give to people.
So I'll take most question first. I think that the people who are living in the place itself, regrettably, do not see the value in what they have, because they do not see the value, and they have also been deeply colonized in the mind to believe that what they have is inferior. And that is not the problem only of India. It's most places that were colonized have the only way to colonize people is when you colonize their minds. And when you instill this thought in a people that what you have, your culture, your custom, your cuisine, your aspiration, your design is somewhat inferior and it's insufficient, then that entire populace starts seeing meaning and pride in what they have. So really the role that I am playing in all these places is that saying that, okay, we don't need to put Chinese tiles in Jaisalmer, which has the most beautiful sandstone, because it is just common sense. And the reason why I'm able to do so is not because of some weird superpower. It is just because I've just had the opportunity and the privilege to travel outside and then see the region that I come from for what it is. Like it's literally as simple as that. Is that when I travel and I see how an Italian shoemaker takes pride in the craft that has been running in their family for generations, is when person who's doing line work takes pride and does that more than the transactional value of the job. I see that all of these skills, all of these crafts, all of these philosophies exist back home as well. What I said in the beginning is that I don't see heritage from the sense of nostalgia or nationalism. I just see that as an incredible repository of knowledge. That think about it, that the best of the living experiences of many generations, refined over many centuries, really became art forms, crystallized into art forms. And so if you take those art forms and you throw them away, it's just not commonsensical. So you can take that art form and build something on it, and it's of exceptional value. And so I think that my role in all these places is to just remind people who they already are and what they already know and what they already possess, and position it really in their heads that what they have is fantastic, and see that, and then position it for an audience. And what I do is just in all these regions build a medium wherein I can take the Jaisalmer stone, which is lying abundant in this thing, make a beautiful bathtub out of it, and the top India incorporation people and Bollywood stars, when they come and they say that this is great design, then it convinces the people of Jaisalmer that maybe this is a fantastic store thing. And so it's like repositioning with that community to then work with them to push the craft to an exceptional level, which obviously is going to make sense for the rest of the world as well. So the storytelling is more internal, and then you put the product out, and then the product does the storytelling itself. So that's really the idea. In fact, when you extrapolate this from architecture to the kind of foods that you grow, we don't need to grow foods that are not right to be grown in the region for the first place, but because of capital subsidies given by government, because some policy is made in some air conditioned room, hundreds of miles away, you destroy entire ecosystems, and people of this generation don't even know what is native to that place, just because that does not sell well, because it does not have the MSP, minimum selling price guarantee, by the government, because the government is just busy not understanding biodiversity based plants that grow in these regions without insecticide, without pesticides, without any urea in it, can also be very high protein foods that can fetch really good market prices, and can grow food at the lowest ecological cost. This, someone needs to just demonstrate it and then make the first premise, and then the people catch up on it. And simple as that. It's as simple as that.
It's amazing.
Wow. I feel like you should be friends with Vandana Shiva.
I really admire her.
Do you know her work?
I really admire her work.
Her work is extraordinary.
Yeah.
I feel like you guys would be fast friends.
Could I ask you just?
She's extraordinary.
It's this is so fascinating. You mentioned earlier on that you have the support, and you're blessed with the support of your family, even though they may have different ideas, or maybe they don't yet fully appreciate or understand some of the things that you're doing. Obviously, you're leveraging your kind of family capital to achieve this. So how do you strike that balance? Like, yes, you have their support, but how do you strike the balance across whether it's like capital structure, time horizon, liquidity, or other sort of very practical considerations that families usually like to have clarity on in order to kind of get full buy-in in supporting the capital projects they underwrite?
You're absolutely right, and it's a very good question. I think that the initial bit when I started with the Suryagarh project, and you will see it in the case study, I changed the business premise of the place. I reduced the number of rooms to 1/3, and I just had the conviction that we can push revenue by 3 times, because that is what this place is really valued. At least it was valued by head. And yes, there was this initial risk that you're taking. And truth be told, while we were in the project, I had changed this business premise. The banks who had approved a loan to us did not give us the loan. So we ultimately opened the hotel with literally 1/6 the rooms that we had initially planned. The first few years were a definite struggle, and the family was really deeply concerned about what is the practical aspect of return on this capital. But first principles remain first principles, and the destination had inherent value, and we were able to market it well, and God was kind, and it did create outsized capital value. It did create a moat because of some of the things that we had done that the rest of the market could not, had not done at that point in time. And to have done it and demonstrated that success has really paved way for me within my own family to try on bolder ideas, more long-term horizon ideas. And I have managed to demonstrate, now there is a record, that it will create a lot of value, and some of it will also transact into financial value in a way that your capital will get its due return. And that's my premise even now.
Wow.
But yeah, the initial period when
That's
so and then the ideas are like, it's like, I remember when I started Suryagarh, there was really grave concern for a very long time that, is this project going to see the light of the day, and or will we be selling our family jewels? And thankfully the latter did not happen. Thankfully the latter did not happen, and But then once Suryagarh was established, and I said that we should really extend and put our own money in cleaning up the city, and because that will change the perception of Jaisalmer. We are the top operators in Jaisalmer, and it's going to transact into value for us at some point, but it's a longer arc of this thing. But it did. When Jaisalmer flights were closed in Jaisalmer, I was able to gather the entire populace of Jaisalmer, people in the tourism industry, and we started a first citizen airline partnership when we underwrote the potential losses of an airline, if at all there would be, to start the airline, and we were one of the beneficiaries of the project. But when you every time that you make a proposition which says that okay, this is a punt that you are taking in hope that you are going to generate outsized capital return, financial returns, there is always this initial period of hesitation. But hopefully now, being 17 years in this journey, they have definitely a lot more confidence than when I was just beginning.
So by the way, I could let this podcast go on for like 2 hours, but I know we have, like, I feel like we're just getting started, but I did want to bring in the project of Dhun. Is that how you pronounce
Yes,
it? Dhun?
Dhun. It means harmony or
That's that
It means harmony or melodies, he said.
harmony or melody. Okay, got it. But that is a regenerative, restorative land project on hundreds of acres. That doesn't look like something that provides an immediate capital return. So how does that project fit into your overall thesis and your family's support?
it's in fact exactly the same thesis. It is just that the scale of it is 10 times more than any project I've attempted so far. Therefore, it's going to take 10 times the effort and it's going to take 10 times the time. Hopefully not, but that's the thing. But the initial premise is the same, that you get into a region which has very strong fundamentals. You acquire a piece of land that is biologically no value, culturally perceived low value, and very low real estate value in that sense. Then, through the process of ecological regeneration, cultural regeneration, placemaking, programming, social regeneration, you start building value onto that place. And then, by building value on that place, that barren land becomes a high value human settlement. And that's really the arc of time. So, where we started Dhun Project, it's 500 acres of land, had less than 30 trees, perceived no water at all, therefore very low financial value. And we could learn from traditional knowledge systems of Jaisalmer and use them in Jaipur and bring 600 million liters of rainwater. We could use the Miyawaki methodology of planting forests from Japan and conventional methods of planting orans in Rajasthan and plant 300,000 trees. We instituted some traditional knowledge systems in revitalizing land using technology to make that much more effective. And I realized that I'm always leaning into the cultural repository of knowledge systems that have been part of this land and, in fact, around the world, and leverage that to create value in places. And hopefully that will transact at some point, and we will be able to get our returns on financial returns on the capital. Dhun, as you rightly said, that at this moment, it sometimes frustrates my family also because we've been investing money in this. All my hotel money is going into this project for the past 13 years. And so far, there has been no financial return. But if you see 189 types of birds have come there, there is aspiration for people to settle in there. We just got featured in a very famous documentary. uh, there is value that got built. And I think that in the times that we are headed in, where in India, 22 of the 30 most polluted cities in the world are in India, with the highest human dividend, an economy that is going from 3 trillion to 30 trillion. I feel that places where people choose to live to have the certainty of water, to know where your food comes from, to have safety for your children, to have an environment around that is culturally and physically pleasing will be a very high value commodity. So I think that the time is ripe when we start offering livability as a service. And especially in a country like India, it's going to be very, very relevant. And so I feel that our city environments are greatly crowded, polluted, unaffordable, unlivable, unsustainable. So if I create micro habitats wherein we offer people, take away all the drags that exist in living in urban environments and give them all the opportunities of the urban environment along with access to the most basics that support human flourishment, then I think that will become very high value in time, financially as well. So again, it's a long term thing, and hopefully it's going to work. But just to give you
I
one,
love that. I often say to our families,
but just I'll just give you one small example. Like right now, I'm working with a bunch of various experts we documented our traditional systems of urban planning as well as building constructions, materials, and methodologies. And not only those buildings are 60% less carbon impact, but they will save 50% on electricity costs for this thing. And what have I done? It's nothing extraordinary. It's that something that already existed in the architecture of this region. I've contextualized it, innovated slightly on it, and then using it for this thing. So traditional knowledge system converting to real value, financial value, and that extrapolated over a city. Uh, that's really what I'm trying to do with Dhun.
Could I ask you just I mean, central to this whole discussion has been this extraordinary feature of vision and really envisioning, principally you envisioning something that the vast majority of people cannot envision. So identifying a whole ecosystem and community where none exists and figuring out how to leverage either the cultural capital or the unique dynamics or the quiet and peace which is scarce in large cities and certainly the all the benefits that come along with that is really unique to you. When you think about your organization and all the people that work for you and support you, have you found any ways to transmit, to teach to that vision to others? Have you found that there's a way of expanding that capacity to generate those visions? Um, Again, in other domains, perhaps outside of your organization. I'm just curious because to me, that sounds like one of the secret ingredients in all of this is you seeing what the vast majority of people simply don't.
Answer to that is it's not a one-way transmission. There are, I think, the most exceptional ideas really come from the people who are working with you, around you. And what I'm able to do is to just stitch those ideas in a way that it makes sense. But the only way to propagate this vision for more people to see value in this thing, I have to prove serious financial success in what I am doing right now. And that is really the motivating factor for people to try out these things. I mean, none of the things that I'm doing is new. These are all old concepts. It's nothing new, nothing extraordinary about it. It is just the fact that what is the only difference is that I'm actually doing it and working along it. I think that in India, in countries like India, most people are so busy solving for today that they don't have the luxury to think about tomorrow. And that is really the only differentiator. And I have that luxury to think about tomorrow because my belly is full and I don't have to, you know, search around. And so that is why I'm able to see the bigger picture. While culturally, risk taking in India is not awarded as risk taking in the US. Therefore, the ecosystem that supports big, bold ideas does not exist because the cost of failure has been so high. And I think that it is not the lack of vision in other people, It is their non-ability to take risk and the non-scaffolding that exists in society in case they fall is really what differentiates me from them. I don't think that it is anything else. I think that these ideas that I'm working on are very common, and more people would do it if there was an ecosystem that could support it.
We often say to our families, the family office is one of the most ripe and potent places to invest from because you have those longer time horizons and you don't have outer shareholder pressures. So you can innovate at this level. And I have often said to our families, if I were in your shoes, I would go long biodiversity because I'm looking at the homogenization of real estate and, strip malls and, at some point there would be too many strip malls, too much development, and people will wake up to the fact what I should have been doing is actually land banking highly biodiverse habitats. And this is the first time that I hear the thesis of also preserving cultural habitats, that investing in culture will have a long-term reward.
Because there is so much latent value there. There is just so much latent value that exists. I mean, just think about this. We need to build 2.5 billion homes in a world that is getting hotter and drier. Just think what the cultural IP that exists in Jaisalmer and many Bedouin cultures, they can teach about desert architecture, wherein they can keep building school by virtue of not using any materials that are polluting, which are net healthy for people and which are developed at a fraction of the cost that otherwise would go. That IP is very, very valuable. And what I'm trying to do is in every region, I'm trying to get these gems and build and leverage that value.
Uh, this is just I'm so floored by this conversation that I'm actually trying to process as we're going through it that I almost don't want to corrupt it with questions. But Manvendra, I'm curious because you have a very evolved, conscious, sort of and mature thought process around this entire enterprise. Who are some of the folks that have impacted your thinking besides your parents, which you've already shared? Who have been the greatest influences on your life? What have been sources of wisdom that you have been able to call into? And I mean deeper wisdom, not sort of tactical, practical type of stuff, but like that have guided your path.
I think that there are no particular like gurus that I've had in my life, but I have tried to learn from the people that I have met and the places that I have seen. But I have to say that the most that I have learned from is my immediate colleagues and my peers that I have worked with. And they have taught me about the skill and life more than anyone else could. Just because my overlap with them has been so much and their perspectives have been so unique. I think that my entire work life success, whatever little I have, has been built on the backs of people who I completely lucked out in finding. And I was able to inspire them a vision with a vision of the future, and then they made it much bigger than I'd imagined. And in that process of doing the stuff is where I have learned the most and have been inspired the most. But I just complete. But I have to also say that I have also had this like exceptional curiosity and desire to just go and see what's happening in other parts of the world, and I make it an effort to go and like if I was having a conversation, there was a big part of my life where I had already established my first few hotels and they were working well. And then I was starting to just work on Dhun, the idea. And if we were having a conversation like that, and you would say that, oh, have you heard of this community in Japan who are doing this? And sure enough, like I would go to Japan tomorrow, get on a flight and just go and spend time there. And there was a big phase of my life that I was exactly that. And I think that I still am part of that. But now there are many projects that need serious execution. But I think that I learned the second thing on that, the serendipity that I just, or let's say the chance connections that happened with people and the places that I saw because of those chance connections, and what I gathered from there was the second biggest source of learning.
No, no, no. I mean, it says a lot. First of all, I mean, your curiosity and your openness to opportunity in whatever form and whatever place and from whomever it may come, obviously has been a powerful contributor to that. Um, I did want to, and I know we have probably time for just one or two more quick questions, but um, part of, you know, so much of what you do and what you embody and what you are trying to bring forward into the world is positive change. And you're doing a lot of that through, um, impactful commercial enterprises. There were also things that you've mentioned that or referenced that you do sort of in a more purely philanthropic or and I'm wondering how you think about that continuum, if at all. A lot of, and certainly in the West, we typically bifurcate philanthropy and commerce, right? And so that it sounds like for you that is much more intertwined. But is there any continuum for you between, sort of like concessionary, here's what I just give away and have no expectation of ever seeing again, and what is like I do need a hurdle threshold for what I'd like to see either regenerative or coming back, and obviously having some kind of return. How do you
Yeah.
think about that? How do you frame it in
So
your
I
world?
don't do any philanthropy at all. Zero philanthropy. I think that it has its place, and but I feel that any capital can be multiplied and can have a lot more systemic impact if it is deployed for projects that create institutions that create equality of opportunity on a larger scale in a way that you increase the overall size of the pie, and then you take from that pie and reinvest that money and to keep on growing that pie. So I have
Mhm.
I don't think that I have any philanthropic mind at all now, except for the fact that sometimes there
Mm.
is someone who needs some capital. Usually it's not a lot, because you in India, in our extended communities, and you always find people who are so pressed on the other side that it's only that help in that moment that can get them on the other side. So, but except for that, on an institutional level, I don't do any philanthropy at all. I find that is the capital that I'm putting in getting deployed to create systemic change, and when that systemic change gets created, it unlocks value in multiple dimensions, and I'm able to realize some of that value and then just keep on growing that premise. So that's how I see. I think all my work is philanthropic in a manner of speaking, and none of my work is philanthropic in a manner of speaking. So that's I don't know. I hope that it answers your question to whatever extent it can.
Yeah,
I would call that I would call
Yeah.
that regenerative
yeah,
capitalism.
Okay. So
If I
yeah,
had to
yeah,
put a
it's
word
that.
to it.
yeah.
It's that.
No,
So
and
when you think of
it's
revitalizing,
amazing.
like right now, I'm working with a bunch of people who I'm getting for the first time an opportunity to work with. And these families have been just making temples in different parts of the country for like over 20, 25 generations. And the new breed of those people don't want to continue in those professions because it is not glamorous and it is not this thing. So I am putting in this capital which will not have any financial return in the short term to revitalize that craft and building that capacity and taking these people myself to show them temples of how carving is done and this and that, just so that they are able to remember what they already know. And then at some point, I will create a craft of this, and I will be able to create outsized value on it. So I do not know when it's going to happen, but it's certainly going to happen at some point. And so I do not call that as philanthropy. I just call it as a long term investment into something that is going to generate outsized value for everyone.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Wow, this has been an amazing
We just
conversation.
scratched the
Yeah,
surface.
I know we're just
What do you think, Mo? I think if families want to visit these properties, they should reach out to us. Maybe we organize a prime quadrant trip with a bunch of
yeah.
families, and we do a little caravan tour of a few of
Yeah,
them.
this would be a treat.
Amazing.
Absolutely. Manvendra, thank you. I mean, this has exceeded all of my expectations, and I know we haven't even scratched the surface here. So, just from me personally and on behalf of all of our families, just want to thank you for being you, doing what you do, showing up as you are. And, I think you're effectively not just having that impact locally on all the properties that you're involved with, but I think you're actually building a model and a paradigm that if others replicated or mirrored or drew inspiration from, I think that there could be real power and real impact, far, far beyond the borders that you personally reach. So
Thank
thank
you.
you for
It's
that.
been a pleasure. And thank you. Just thank you.
And just for all of our listeners, again, we are deeply grateful to have Manvendra join us. And as a reminder, all of the efforts of Prime Talks are in support of some of our mental health efforts and initiatives. So if you'd like to sort of contribute, please support our work at the primequadrantfoundation.com. And just before we close off, Manvendra, is there any call to action for any of our listeners, anywhere where they could find out more about you, anything that would be relevant and helpful in sort of furthering your mission that you may want to share?
Yeah, I think at the heart of what I'm trying to do is cultural regeneration, and that becoming foundation for creating developmental narratives in communities wherein sufficiency and opportunity can come to these communities not at the cost of their environment or identity, but becomes possible because of it, is really at the heart of everything that I'm trying to do. I definitely think that there is outsized value to be created societally, culturally, environmentally, but also financially. And if anyone in your network resonates with that idea, I would love to trade notes and invite them to join forces.
Yeah, I actually have a few people in mind for you. So this has been great. Thank you again, and really appreciated this conversation and you taking time out of your busy schedule.
My pleasure entirely.
Thank you, truly.